I can truly, honestly tell that I have had a huge impact and a breakthrough with an athlete and their mindset when they write in Training Peaks, I didn't work out today. I chose to do this instead, and I don't feel bad about it. That's what you should do. You should show yourself some grace, prioritize things that are important. Remember, this is a hobby and it's supposed to enrich your life, and that at any time you feel like that you have shame or guilt around your training, then you're in a relationship you need to break up with or you need to reevaluate.
Oh boy, life has a way of balancing itself out.
Man, wakey, eggs and bakey.
Early on Monday, late today with an old...
I think it all evens out to coming around about 9 o'clock. So,
that's
early one day, that's kind of how we roll. And again, we don't really have too much of a set schedule, and we're never really late. We always try to be on time. And this is the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 277.
276.
Man, 277.
My name is Mike. I'm the age grouper. I'm here with Coach Robbie. We discuss all things triathlon, what's on everybody's mind at the moment, try to be a little bit timely with regard to the season, answering your questions, getting things, just keeping you company here.
Keeping you company, as we have been for the last 2.5 years, and like we said, 277 episodes, usually every Monday and Thursday, sometimes odd days given life and holidays, but generally we're on Monday and Thursdays. We appreciate you joining us, and I got to give another little shout out to the people who answered the kind of call to action and hit us up on iTunes for some reviews. I had some longtime listeners leave reviews, which is who I really like that leave reviews. I generally think that leaving for any podcast, whether it's outstanding or terrible, I think that, leaving a review after like listening for 15 seconds just isn't really, a good overall view of kind of how you would feel about the podcast. But
it's just not a good way to approach your life, really.
Or anything. It's really not. Let me take 2 seconds and then make a rash judgment on something that's supposed to be free, and I download it because I felt like it, and then crush it like I just paid $2,000 for it and it wasn't delivered on time. We appreciate it. It's always good feedback. I was reading through them this morning, getting prepared for the cast and seeing if anybody did, and it's pretty humbling, man. I tell you, you should go back and read them, and if you haven't already. And it's a great privilege that Mike and I are able to do this, and reach out to people and have this community that we have, and it seems like we're doing not too terrible of a job. Always room for improvement, but we try our best. And again, this podcast is it about triathlon? Yes. Will you find helpful training and racing tips and ways to better incorporate training into your life and become a better athlete? Yes. But we also like to cover other topics regarding how triathlon kind of revolves around your life, or maybe the other way, how life revolves around triathlon and our experiences. And I've been competing in the sport for what is 15 years now, which seems like an eternity, and coaching full-time for quite a while. And Mike has been competing for going on 6 years. So we have a lot of experience, and that's kind of what we do, is just share that, have a conversation, sit back, relax, and hopefully you can take something out of it.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of that article that Cody Beals, that you talk about all the time, that Cody Beals wrote about the anatomy of an Ironman, kind of it's sort of how we approach our podcast in a way. Sometimes,
except we're not champions.
Right, except we're not champions. We just, we have stuff that we want to talk about, and we kind of, without, you mentioned this many times, giving you the 10 best ways to do something or something, that kind of podcast. We'd like to build more of a relationship, and sort of like, what comes out is sort of what's on our mind at the time. And over time, I think there's a lot of really good things that come out, and that's good to hear that people feel like it's been helping them. And we hear that quite a bit. I think it is a little bit of a commitment to kind of give us a little time sometimes.
Listen, we are not if we're going to put this in college years terms, we are not your one night stand kind of podcast. We are likely not going to fulfill anything wonderful in one episode, but
crazy ongoing relationship, maybe.
Yep. But yeah, exactly. It's where sometimes you're like, it's or I think we're kind of one of those relationships where like we're best friends, and then you're like, all right, listen, if you turn 30 and you're not married, and I turn 30 and we're going to get married, and you just kind of come to that agreement, and then you both realize that you're both bachelors or bachelorettes by the time you're 30, and you're like, F me, I totally committed to that, and I can't believe it, but now I'm stuck.
Yep.
And that, welcome, Crushing Iron podcast in a nutshell.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah, there's your rose. But there was quite a. I mean, we tend not to dive into like breaking news as much as a lot of other podcasts do. But there was two kind of bigger announcements, I think, in the triathlon world these last 72 hours, really, with the announcement of a new North American Ironman and the expiration of another Ironman, and then also a swim start change to Kona. Both of those that I thought are very interesting and something I wanted to touch on for a little bit as we hop off. But one was the Ironman Tulsa was announced yesterday via Facebook Live at 12:15, and I gotta say, they got me.
They got you.
They got me.
They got you hooked.
I watched.
Oh, you did?
I watched. They didn't get me hooked at all. But they got me to watch, which is the point. And I think what they did with the whole announcing the 4 cities, I think it's brilliant. And again, like as much as there are holes in that I think there are, as there are with every business and every model and brand or whatever, there's always room for improvement. But as much as Ironman has that tough balance of being, it's a brand and a business, 100%, but it's also one of its product is an event, and so they really have like I think a fine line between people assuming you're an event but you're actually a brand. Events and races don't have trademark issues. Ironman does. And they'll get on you for it. And I think I even I have Training Peaks plans on. I have plans on our website that are also available on Training Peaks to purchase, and I was alerted last week that unless I become that Training Peaks and Ironman have renewed their partnership, whatever the hell that means, and unless I am an Ironman certified coach, that I'm not allowed to use the word Ironman in the training plans that I offer.
Oh.
And so I just politely declined and said, please remove this because I have no intention of doing that. But I thought what they did with the marketing of Des Moines, Fayetteville, Memphis, and Tulsa, I thought it was brilliant. And I think we all kind of know now what they're doing. They announced Ironman Tulsa, the removal of Ironman Boulder, which, again, long time coming. Yeah, people want to say, oh, Boulder's the mecca of track. No, it's not. Like, there was 1,300 people that came to that event, and I never really heard. I mean, it's a great city, I think, and I think it's a beautiful backdrop, but I really haven't heard like too many outstanding things about the race in general. So that went by. Ironman Tulsa was announced, but from the rumor mill and what they kind of alluded to yesterday after the announcement, like they went straight live, like from a press conference in Tulsa with like the city commissioner or whoever else in charge of like the sports stuff, and they went straight live to some like huge press conference. But then they also alluded to afterwards that be on the lookout for other cities. These are the cities that were in contention: Memphis, Des Moines, Fayetteville. That there may be more news coming, and it's been on the rumor mill. It has been that all 3, or at least 1 or 2 of them, are going to get 70.3s next year. And I think it's brilliant because what they did was they jacked up the attention and the excitement over a new North American race, which I don't think we've had in like 3 or 4 years. And they got everybody in these cities super excited about triathlon, super excited about it. They're like, oh, well, we're not going to give it this one to you, but what we are going to do is give you another one, and you're going to be like, well, I got to sign up now because I was excited for the other one. But I think it was smart. I tuned in, and I have no intentions of doing Tulsa next year. I like for first year events to kind of get their kinks worked out. And I got to say one thing for all the people that are like complaining and moaning about it being in Tulsa, A, you're just mad because it wasn't in your city. And B, if you're complaining about the fact that it's in tornado season and why they have it in Tulsa in quote-unquote tornado season, then I hope you complain about Ironman Maryland and Ironman Florida, which also fall in hurricane season. I hope you complain about the races in California that also fall during wildfire season. So you can't make triathletes happy. They're always going to find something to complain about. But overall, I think it's great. I think the Midwest has been very, widely underserved for quite a long time. I know, the majority of our listener base comes from the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Kansas 70.3, that didn't last. They had Branson 70.3 in Missouri, that didn't last. They've got Wisconsin that seems to always go on strong, and even Wisconsin 70.3 still does really well. So I think there's obviously a huge market there, and they're filling it. And I think it was a great move overall, and I think it's just exciting when Ironman decides to add a new event. I think it hopefully shows that the participation and the demand is growing, which I think is always a good thing for the sport, even if you want to complain about Ironman as much as you want, and I do too sometimes. They do have the market share, but I also think that they may be on a crash course of adding events, creating excitement, and then doing them just so they can rotate out with different events every few years, which I think is smart. I think people like coming to new events. And sometimes we would go years and years without having a new 70.3 announced. Now they're getting announced all over the place. But I think going in 3 to 4 year cycles with having contracts with the city, selling those out, getting those pumped up, and then in the interim, pumping up cities a year behind, you're just going to continually rotate and go through cities versus always being in the same city every year for a specific number of 70.3s, and people kind of get disinterested. I don't. I love going back to repeat events. I'm a creature of habit, so that's kind of how I roll. But I think it's smart. I think it's really smart what they're doing. I think it's exciting, and I hope that the inaugural event goes off without a hitch, and they do awesome. I've driven through Tulsa twice. I don't have much to say about it, but
well, they have a beautiful rolling ride through the countryside
right.
setup.
Yeah, apparently.
I think you're right. I also think that they're just if they're doing these 3-year contracts or whatever, and a city just proves that they're going to really get behind it and it's going to work. They'll stay there. I think that's just some of these towns for whatever reason, there's animosity or there's not a great, local support, or people don't want to go there. Something happens and they just get out and they're going to move around. If that's going to be the model, it's sort of but I think that, anything like a Wisconsin that's been there for how many years, 15 years or something?
Oh, longer than that.
And obviously that community, they have a great relationship with that place. And I think Chattanooga probably, if they can get a year of good, decent weather.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's been the hitch on that one.
But I mean, I guess the one thing you can say is if it isn't tornado season, they're playing a little bit of fire. If it's hurricane season, they've had some bad luck with that kind of stuff. I don't know. That's a bigger thing. I've been thinking about it, and it really is easy to sit back and, throw darts at Ironman. And I'm just kind of sick of doing that. I'm trying to get out of that mode because I really do appreciate what they do. I love their races. And I hope that it gets... I hope Tulsa's just becomes the next Wisconsin or something where it's people love it and it's always a solid race and people keep going back, because that's what we need. And we were talking about it one time before. It's really nice to think about these bigger cities, maybe like a Memphis getting it, or I don't know if that's a great example, but you know what I mean? Sometimes it may come down to having a smaller city that might be more into it.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that because it is a big, we were talking about, a lot of people have talked, we're in Nashville and a lot of people, there's possibly some great opportunity to do one here, but there's no way in the world, I think,
not
Nashville
a chance in
they've
hell.
got so much going on here.
They would have one here.
It would be,
no way.
It would be, the money they make from something like that is chicken scratch compared to what they make from some of these conventions, and they don't have to shut down a million roads and piss everybody off locally, and
yeah, and that's what it would be. And it's not the most outdoor friendly town. Like they're
Well,
not
that
eager.
too, yeah.
They're
But that
more
means Boulder's the most friendly, so it's like you never know, I guess. But
Yeah, you're. I mean, but I don't think you or I would want to ride anywhere even remotely close to downtown unless the roads were totally closed, because you'd get clipped by a 17-year-old driving a white Range Rover, sipping on Starbucks, face talking to her iPhone 13, which is a little too dangerous for me. But yeah, I do. I hope it goes awesome. I hope they stick around for a while, and I do. I really hope that Fayetteville and Des Moines and these other places, I think, I really hope they get some events, because I just think generally new events in different cities, it helps grow the sport. It helps attract people to different states to go see different areas. I mean, heck, I don't think my wife and I would be moving to Chattanooga if there weren't races there.
mm-hmm.
So the impact that these races have, I think, just go well beyond what we think as athletes selfishly, because that's the way that I think a lot of athletes are wired. But to go to these different cities and see different things and visit, and then I think what we also forget is that just anytime there's an event, I guarantee you that there are going to be people who are now going to pick up a sport of triathlon and get in shape and change their life because the Ironman is coming to Tulsa, and because their friends are excited and they have something excited about, and the triathlon club is there. And so I think it's great. I think anytime that those opportunities arise, I think it's wonderful. And when you deal with so many different cities, and like you said, so not just one city official, but different, and a lot of city officials in different departments and different politics, but then also you have to deal with them on a rotating basis. Like, unless they're going to be there and they're going to get elected term after term after term after term, it's somebody different. And I think that there's so many things to take into account for, and that's why I think also, like, the race director, their job is probably the most. I think, and Del Monte has talked about this before on the two casts we had with him, is like I think it's like one of the most thankless jobs ever. Rarely people will ever like compliment a race director on how great a race went off, but they will just totally complain and moan about every little thing possible.
Yeah.
And so I think that the RDs have it rough, and I think, but it also really shows the separation between the great ones and the not so great ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's great, and I'll be excited if they announce some other ones. I have not been in Des Moines. I've always wanted to go. When Allie and I lived in Kansas City, we were excited about going there. We have some friends, some of our close friends now live in Iowa, so I was getting pretty pumped about that. And I will. If they have a 70.3, I'll probably go just to check it out. I heard Des Moines is a great city. They always have some of the Olympic trials there for swimming, I believe, is in Des Moines. But yeah, overall, I think it's great. And new
they
things.
had track and field there this year, I think.
Did they? Yeah, it's a pretty cool.
So yeah, that
cool
could
city.
be a good.
And Fayetteville is a huge, widely underrated city. We have athletes in Bentonville, and they said that town is awesome. And Fayetteville alone is like very, very outdoor friendly. And Memphis, we'll see how that plays out, but you never know. I think it's exciting. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's really, really great for new athletes. It gets something in the headlines for them to grab a hold to, and hopefully gives them the confidence. Because I guarantee you that it's going to change someone's life that lives in Tulsa. That's like, oh my gosh, that's right there. Like, what is this? What is triathlon? They read the newspaper. They see it on the watching their local news, like, what is? And they look it up and they're like, oh my gosh, I could do that. Or what's that about? And they end up making a lasting, substantial change in their life. And I think that's overall something to be excited about. The other thing was they have now moved to, I think it was announced on Monday or Tuesday, I think, was that they're changing the Kona swim start to waves. It's kind of interesting timing or coincidental that it came on the heels of our The Swim is Canceled podcast. And I think generally from what I saw, like, people were really complaining about it. Oh, the sport's getting soft. The sport's getting even softer. And like for that event specifically, I couldn't disagree more. I think every event is different. If you've ever watched Kona, it's not a mass start. In my opinion, I mean, everyone is so spread out in the water. Is that everyone starts together, but the pro men last year, the pro men went off, then the pro women went off, and then the age group men went off, and the age group women went off. That's not a mass start. And I think anytime you kind of can get in the water, like, mass start to me is like back in the day when they had Ironman Florida and everyone started on the beach and then they blew the horn and or the gunshot went off and everybody ran to the water. To me, that's a mass start. The secondary one would be like Ironman Wisconsin used to be, which I think is the perfect start. I was talking about this last night with my mom and Allie at dinner because my mom like sent me this link that was like the two 70.3 athletes at Wisconsin that passed away, and she was asking me questions, about what I thought. And I was like, "Well, Mom, if you listen to our podcast, you'd know what I thought about it. Mm-hmm. Thanks for the support."
She's a big supporter.
She is, but I think in water starts like that are the answer, and I have a lot of additional thoughts. I'm not going to go into that, but I think so if you're not familiar with the mass start in Wisconsin, you can always hop and go onto YouTube and search Crushing Iron tribute video or Crushing Iron Wisconsin and see the way some of Mike's awesome videos of that Wisconsin course. But the way it used to be was everyone filed into the water, and then you could be in the water for 15 minutes treading water.
At least, yeah.
At least 15, 20 minutes treading water, getting your position, getting some swim strokes in, getting acclimated to the water, letting your heart rate slowly rise. Again, taking more practice strokes. Just get generally acclimated to your surroundings and environment, and then the gun goes off. But you're still fairly spread out because, people are on the front, people are on the back. So I think that's generally the safest start you can possibly have because it gives more people in the water time to get warm and get acclimated to their surroundings. But so Kona is very much that way. Everybody comes in off the pier, they get in the water. The reason that Ironman, I believe, and I think this is what I read, changed it was because specifically they're trying to make that course more fair. While it is an Ironman World Championship, it is probably the most cheated at event on the planet. Some of it is difficult, I think, to get around, and then some of it's just flat out blatant. If you want to hop on like the Ironman Texas, hate wagon of last year, it's like 50 times worse at Kona. The trains that go by on the Queen K because the way they've done it in the past, it's so congested. And at a World Championship, when you might have, in a regular race, you might have 10% of the people coming out of the water between the 55-minute mark and the 105 mark out of the swim. Well, at Kona, when you have a lot of the higher end upper echelon type athletes, that might be 30 to 35%. And now you're looking at a congested road where it's out and back and not as much room as you would probably think. Everyone's kind of going the same. Everyone's also, again, kind of going the same speeds. It's just super, super congested. So what I think they're doing is they're trying to elongate the time, to trickle people in and out of transition to where the bike is more separate. I think it'll make it easier for them to ding people with penalties. Does it suck that I think some of the latter, older age groups have to go later into the hot part of the day? I do. But guess what? It's Kona, and guess what? It's going to be hot from the time you put on your swim cap to the time you take your timing chip off. It's just flat hot. And yeah, I have absolutely no issue at all with them putting the legacy slot people in the back. Where'd you expect to go? But I think overall it's for I think it's for some safety, but I think it's more safety on the bike course. I don't think it's about water safety as some people, I think, initial's reaction is that the sport's getting soft. I think it's actually to make it more fair. And so I think there will be more bike penalties this year. I think it'll spread things out. And I think it will really, truly help a lot of the female athletes who are super strong that get caught up either with guys and their egos that don't want to get checked and they just can't let go, and they will surge and they won't let a female pass them. And this happens at the pro race every single year. Pro women catch some of the pro men and they cause drafting penalties on the women because the difference isn't enough from when the pro men go off to when the pro women go off. So some of the fastest Lucy Charles is catching some of the pro men in the water, and then you get on the bike and they might be different speeds, but you got guys that don't want to be checked and caught by a much faster, much stronger female, and so they'll surge in front, and then the female gets caught either by blocking or they didn't pass fast enough. And so I think it's great. I think it's great in two ways. One, it'll be fair, and a lot of the guys will get dinged that should get dinged. It's a world championship, and they cheat blatantly or they just get in the way. But two, I think it'll really help make the bike course more fair for the females and spreading things out a little bit more. I don't think it has anything to do with the swim. I don't think it has anything to do with making it easier on the ladies, like I think some people think. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's about fairness on the bike course, and then elongating that and separating the packs and being more intentional, I think allows the bike referees to be more on it in terms of calling penalties on a smaller pack of 6 versus a pack of 25, which is what you would normally have at Kona with these trains that roll by with absolutely no care in the world that they're cheating. So I think it's a good move, and I think it's fine the way they do that, since you're still starting in the same wave with your same people. So if you see a 45-year-old, you know they started at the same time you do. You don't have to guess at the rolling start like, oh, well, I wonder if I started ahead of them or behind them. Am I beating them or am I not beating them? And so they didn't mess that up. I overall think it's a good move, a strategic move, and I think it's overall going to be a better overall fair race for the age groupers especially.
Yeah, but don't you think though on some level that they're posturing or making these changes to make it feel like, because like you said, I think most people would look at that and say, well, that's going to be a safer way to start. And I think that they're always kind of looking for that imagery. And, I got to be honest, I was a little bit bummed because I think for me more than anything, it's sort of, when I got into this sport, and one of the first things I did see was that Wisconsin mass start, and that spectacle is what got me hooked. Mm-hmm. It was just seeing that. Like if you ever been there, or if you've seen the video of it that I shot on some of these videos, and you look at how that looks, it's just so. I mean, otherwise you look at a triathlon and you really don't see anything that's kind of like exciting.
Yeah,
it's just all spread out, a bunch of people just kind of slugging along, and whatever. But this kind of like crystallizes the intensity of that moment for me, and I think that maybe that's really why I get bummed out about it, because maybe that is exactly right. They are trying to space that bike out and make it more fair. Because I've had a friend of mine did Kona once, and your point was great, because he said, man, he got so jacked up in the swim because everyone was the same speed, and there was really it was really difficult to find separation out there, and he kept getting swallowed up by the water, and he was just never in clear water, it seemed like to him. So maybe there's part of that too, on the other side of it. But I don't know, man. I think that I was reading a little bit about that Boulder thing. I just kind of wanted to see what people were thinking about it. And there's a lot of I went onto the Facebook group, of course, and I really think social media
is such a dangerous place.
I know,
man.
But it really is I was just going to say, I almost think that while all this social media and these Facebook groups for every race and all that sort of thing, it seems like a good thing, but I think it ultimately might be a bad thing for the sport because of the, like you said, there could be 90% of the people or 80% that are just happy with the race director and love the experience and all. They don't go on there and bitch. It's everybody that wants to bitch about something that goes there, and that becomes the voice for the whole event. And it's very rare. Every once in a while you see somebody chime in, I was happy, it was fine, I liked it, or whatever, and that just sort of gets swept under the rug. And then,
exactly. There's like crickets. Yeah.
Then the next 50 are bitching about, and I get it. It's sort of how we are in society today. It's just like,
do you get it though?
Well, I mean, I get how it happens.
I mean, I can sum up race Facebook groups for you in 4 words.
Okay.
Bitching, moaning, trolling, and rumors. That's 95% of what every single Facebook race group I've ever been in. And that's why I don't get them anymore. I just don't even get in them, or I've left them. Because it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. I honestly don't know how you do it.
No, I don't do it, but I was curious. I guess that's the thing, is like you get lazy and you're like, I wonder what people thought of the race the other day. And then I went in there and it was just like all this stuff about how, and I know this, we always talk about Ironman's a business, and I, of course, worked in corporate America for a long time in the media, so I got to see how announcements and stuff are made a lot, and I was really disappointed a lot, because I always would be like, why don't we just be transparent about this? And they would always do strategic things like, wait till certain times or let things blow over or kind of throw things out there because one of the things about Boulder is like, why, if they knew this race was in jeopardy, why didn't they say something 3 or 4 months ahead of time so that people could rally and save Boulder or whatever? But in their mind, they're probably like, well, yeah, maybe they'll rally and save Boulder for one, make it sort of work this year. But in reality, that race isn't working for us, so we need to get out of there. But why didn't they announce it after the race was the question, instead of 1 day or 2 days before? And then all of a sudden it becomes sort of this epilogue sort of thing that nobody cares about.
But then I think because I think they should have announced either 3 months beforehand to jack up registrations, people who wanted to go back and get revenge over a course that they had.
Yeah, here's your last shot.
Yeah, here's your last shot. But I have zero issue at all with them telling people a couple days before, because it let people know, hey, this is your last time, so enjoy it. Instead of the day after, people would have been up in arms about it. They would have been even worse off than they are now. Oh my God, why didn't you tell me I didn't have a chance to say goodbye to mile marker 37? It was my favorite part of the course, and I didn't have the time to soak in the forestry on mile 13 of the run and that beautiful part of the trail, and never be able to return to that again. And thank you, Ironman, for stealing that moment from me. They would have complained about the same thing. Exactly. At least they gave you a chance to say goodbye.
Yeah,
and
that's usually the
it's
people.
like, yeah, say goodbye. I mean, it's like, I think that's how most of it. Give you a chance to say goodbye instead of doing it, and then you get in the car and you're heading out of town. You didn't take any pictures. You didn't do this. And you're like, I'll be back next year. Do it again. And then you get home and you get the rug put out. And you're like, see ya. Never going back.
Right. Yeah. Well, it brings up a question. Those are not easy answers. I don't think you can win either way with that if you're Ironman.
And they don't care because they were announcing a new one in like 4 days.
Right. Well, that's the point, I guess, is it's like, oh, see you later. Oh, this is great. Now everybody's on this, excited about this because it hasn't happened, and there's, you're going to expect the best and everything like that. But, I'm sure after the race next year, people will be bitching about Ironman Tulsa. But it's like...
I mean, people complain about every race, let's be honest.
It reminds me, though, of some of these debates people get in about when they should announce the swim is canceled. Last year at Louisville again, and I'm almost about ready to give this up because I've done some research and have found out that the water flow was extensively high that day and blah blah blah. But if they knew the day before, should they announce it the day before, or should they announce it the morning of, or
day before?
You think a day before? Yeah.
If listen, it's different in different scenarios. Yeah, thanks Robbie for that insight. Yeah, it's different, I think, with downriver swims when it's not Mother Nature controlled, it's city operational TVA or whatever else controlled. Like Chattanooga 70.3, they knew the day before, hey, our city, while we support Ironman and we love that you're here, our job isn't to slow down the flow of this river for you. It's to increase safety and do our job. So I think they knew, and that's why they announced it the day before, that they knew what was going to happen. So I think in a situation like that, in Louisville, I think is the same. I don't know how far upriver the controls are. Chattanooga, it's like a couple miles. So they know, and they just know they can't change it. So let's tell you the day before. And I think that was better.
Hey.
I think people can wrap their mind around it.
Yeah. On that tip, man, I had a question I wanted to ask, and this could be totally ridiculous. But like, if say Louisville did know that was going to be a problem last year, is there any validity to this idea of like, okay, because this Tri Louisville starts at the top of that channel, so there's an entry point there that could have been an alternative entry point possibly. Is there any validity to this thought that I had where you could make up maybe an extra few hundred yards or whatever by doing kind of back and forth kind of angled downstreams? You know what I mean? Like, or would that get just too jacked up, you think?
I think it's just the danger is putting people in the water, and then once somebody would get past, again, it's when we went back talking about on Monday. It's the like when they make these decisions, they think about their worst kayaker and their worst swimmer, because if those two get paired together, then something really bad is going to happen. and no one wants that. So I think they generally make these decisions based on the minorities of weakness on both ends of volunteers
Right.
and what's the safest. So, but I think so. I don't know how much notice or how close the dam is or the flow control is to a Louisville, but in those situations, I think you make it the day before, like they did Chattanooga last year. I know I was bummed. We were both there. The athletes were super bummed, but they got time to wrap their mind around it and make a game plan for the next day. But those situations, those opportunities are like few and far between because everything else is like open water. And like Wisconsin 70.3 is a great example. The conditions the day before were awful. Super rough, not awful. They were just choppy. They were, what lakes of Wisconsin usually are. The next morning, glass. I mean, I heard from most athletes, every single one of them basically said race morning, the conditions are perfect. Totally different than the day before. So you can't make them because it's going to change in bodies of water like that. The temperature could change overnight. It could go from a non-wetsuit cancelable swim to the next morning to being wetsuit legal and perfectly pancake flat, crystal clear water. And that's something I always used to joke about. I did Gulf Coast 70.3 before it turned into an Ironman branded event. I did it 6 years in a row. And we always joked that you knew the day before the race what the next day's water was going to be like because it was going to be totally 100% opposite. It was never the same. If the day before the race was perfect glass, you were like, I'm screwed because the next day was going to be rough. If it was rough the day before, you're like, sweet, glass the next day. You just can't tell. But I think as an athlete, I'd rather know a day before to wrap my head around it, get myself being bummed out of the way, and then have time to rationalize and understand the reasoning. And then as a coach, I definitely want it the day before because now it gives us a chance to re-strategize and basically tell them, don't change a thing. When I say re-strategize, most people say, well, I've got extra watts, so I'm not doing this so I can overpower, and that's like the worst idea ever. But I think you make it the day before, but hopefully that's not something that race directors have to. I mean, again, there are also, I think, when you look at these events, like at participating and registering for events, like there's going to be new events that come up now, and I think if you're looking for like almost for sure events that are going to happen with like no canceled swim, you look at events like Muncie in Ohio, and I think the interesting thing about those races, and I did Muncie. You and I both done Muncie. I've done Ohio. You were with me last year. They're both incredibly put on races. Muncie's been around for like 20 years. It's one of the longest standing 70.3s in the country. But that swim has never canceled. It's in a lake. It's in a time of the year where it's basically never going to get canceled because of water conditions. It may like lightning or storm that might cause it, but for water conditions, no. Ohio is the same way. It's in a lake, but the thing is those two, interesting enough, those two are very, very slow swims. They're harder swims than other races. My two slowest 7.3 times are at both Muncie and Ohio. And it's not because they're slow, as in like the water is slow. I mean, it kind of is, I think. But I think the water depth plays into it. I think the temperature of the water plays into it because sometimes it's not wetsuit legal. Last year, I think it was wetsuit legal at Ohio. I went without one though.
It was optional, I think.
It was optional, I think. Yeah, well, I mean, it's you could stand in the back, but I chose not to wear one. But it's just a long go. So I think when you sign up for races and you want to be very particular, then you have to start relaying that message of demand and what's important to you when you register. Is the swim really important to you? Because if it is, and you want it for sure to happen, and you want for sure that opportunity, you don't want to pick a safe swim that's an easy swim that could get canceled, then you sign up for races like Ohio and Muncie that get close to selling out every single year, and they have 2,000, 2,500 participants every single year. And I think you choose those events, and that's how I think you speak to Ironman as a brand and say, hey, I would love more opportunities for swims that I think Tulsa, lake swim. I would imagine Des Moines, probably a lake swim. These places where the swims will, be more controlled. The only thing you have to worry about with a lake swim maybe is water quality issues or something you can't control with Mother Nature, like a lightning or something like that. But I think that's the reason why those races are so popular, is because there are some races where you kind of know exactly what you're going to get every single time. And there's the least. I think that's important that athletes don't always think about is find a race and find a course. Because if you're easily rattled or you're easily upset or your race is easily destroyed by disruptions or course changes or swim cancellations or swims being shortened, you need to do your own due diligence and look at a race in a venue where there is the least amount of possibility for disruption. Not just for the day of the race, but for the weeks and the months leading up to a race. Like, I would not suggest signing up for 70.3 Beach to Battleship, because the whole race got canceled last year because they had horrible hurricanes and storms last year on the East Coast around that time. So people are going to be obsessively looking at the weather, and I wonder if it's going to happen. I wonder if it's not going to happen. But when you choose a race like Ohio or a Muncie, where you basically know what you're going to get every single time, I think there's an element of that that's not often discussed that should be calming to an athlete, where most athletes look for something to worry about. Those are races to where the only real thing that some athletes worry about is the 4.5 week set. Like, what's the water temp? What's the water temperature? I heard it was like 71. I heard it was like 78. What's it legal? What's it optional? I don't know. And it's like, okay, it's a water temperature, or wetsuit or not. It's an attire. It's a wardrobe change. It's not a will the race go on. And I think that's something that people should, are these no worry races where you just know what you're going to get pretty much every single time. Mm-hmm. Like pizza and Snickers at the end of the race, right, Ken?
Yeah, but that's why I like Wisconsin so much, to be honest, man. I mean, you look at that race, even last year, they had bad floods all over the area coming into that race, and they figured out how to get it going. They and it's been there a while, and I think you're right. It's like once you get a synergy going and there's some stuff going, they were probably, working on that solution weeks ahead of time and thinking about it. Those are different. It just runs like, smooth.
I'm sure they take pride in that.
Yeah, it's like
we've never had it. We've never had a disruption at our.
They don't just
races.
sit back and hope that the water recedes. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure they had different. Yeah, and like you're saying, there's probably they want to get it off. So
yeah, I mean, I think it goes.
How can we do it? Not like
and
what
again,
are we going
like
to do?
Some of the things are out of your control. Like, you can't control how much rainfall, but I think that's where the differences come into play with the location and the race director, and then who's involved. Is you have an entity like Ironman Wisconsin who's got a specific race director, and the legacy of that race has been it's always on. It's always on. The full distance, it's always on. And I think that I would have to imagine they'd take a ton of pride in that, than doing that. And it can be somewhat in their control via what they did last year in just, if you had asked me, I would have said they were going to shorten the swim or cancel it. Because, I saw no way it happening. But they made it work because they physically were the ones that had to do the work to prevent it from being shortened versus or cut out completely versus a race like Chattanooga where they cut it in half, or an Eagleman where you have to worry about the Coast Guard, with your Eagleman. At Chattanooga, you have to worry about the TVA. So you have all these other agencies that come in and are part of the conversation, whereas you take a race like Wisconsin for a full, or Ohio as, a 70.3, there is no Coast Guard. There is no TVA. And I think once you take out two extra agencies and the power that they have over that, or your dependency on them, which I think is another huge item that sometimes we overlook, is that these races are branded as Ironman, but they're put on by a race director with the city, with permission, with the overall hopeful cooperation of multiple agencies, fire department, police department, TVA for Chattanooga. All these different things have to come together on one day. So so the more people you depend on, the more opportunities for one to not work. Whereas Wisconsin, they were the ones that basically probably said, we can make this work if we want to. and they made it work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why races like that stick around. It's because people know that they're going to work hard to do the best they can to pull the race off for the athletes, because they know that the athletes want the opportunity. And again, I think
that's a huge point, dude. I think at the crux of everything that I get a little upset about is that it reminds me of a quote in that book we're reading right now, and I forgot where the quote comes from, but it's something like, warriors look at everything as a challenge, while others look at everything as either a blessing or a curse.
Mm-hmm.
And
hey, man, the obstacle is the way.
Yeah. And
it's like, it's not woe is me. It's okay.
How do we do this? Yeah. How do we
still make this work? Let's not jump to conclusion. Let's not. And again, that, that's the same way for us athletes, as so many athletes look at things. It's woe is me and I can't do it, or it's, oh my gosh. It's like,
good point.
It's like, oh, okay, well, suck it up and make it work. Like, if you really want to, and if you don't, then don't. But don't woe is me. There are so many other people with so many more difficult issues going on that make it work. It's a learning experience. But I think it says a lot about the events and the people that pull them off. And I think they should be celebrated. I think they should be applauded. And I think that you, in turn, as an athlete, if you really want to speak to, giving yourself less opportunity to complain about races, go sign up for the ones that are going to be on. Or that have the sport. And then again, like, you can't control some things like weather. And I think that's just been a very unlucky streak, and not so much of a trend. And again, I think the accessibility and communication and social media aspect plays a huge part of it, because now everything is on blast 24/7, and there's every different platform multiplied by 1,000, because there's also like 9,800 different Facebook groups for each event, and they all basically do the same thing about, hey, go read the athlete guide, and then basically only 5% of all conversations would exist. And then that would be what their weekly total is, or how great their 29-mile run was that took 5 hours and 37 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are Facebook groups for you. But
those groups, man. Every other post is like, what's the water temperature? And then everyone in the group puts emojis up there for like 87. and then like 5 or 6 more posts come, and then some new person comes in about the water temperature, and the same thing happens again. It's like the same questions over and over.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's why we really encourage you to join our Facebook group, which has excellent conversation and supportive people and information that is, different, unique, and valuable. Our close Facebook group, you can find it by searching Crushing Iron Group. So, and we'll let you in there.
Yep, on Facebook, as long as you're not a robot or your name is John Wick, who's only been on Facebook for 35 seconds, coming from us from somewhere in the east part of the world, we'll probably let you in. And take 2 seconds to answer the podcast question. What do you like about the podcast? It could honestly be nothing, but at least you answered it, and we'll let you in. But we do, yeah, it's got another semi-full weekend of racing, and then the rest of the month just gets busier and busier. And if you are racing this weekend, we wish you the best of luck. Have fun. Remember, please, dear God, have fun out there. Enjoy yourself. Be grateful for the opportunity. And if you're training, enjoy yourself. And happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Hope you have a good Sunday. And if you feel the need, I really encourage you to just, either get up super early and get your workout out of the way and done, and enjoy the rest of your day with your family and make that a priority. And while everyone else is appreciating you, we hope you take the time to appreciate the other people in your life that allow you to do these things that make, that allow you to give back to yourself. And no one can do that alone. So I'm sure Maddie is going to get you something awesome on Sunday as you wake up, Mike. So I look forward to hearing what Maddie got you for Father's Day.
Maybe she'll get that squirrel she's been going for 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Squirrel.
Enjoy the sport. I mean, it's like, don't make it so hard. If it's not the priority of your life, it's supposed to supplement and help you be a better person, a happier person, healthier person. Don't get too overstressed by the fact that you maybe didn't nail a workout today or you're a little fatigued or whatever, think about yourself. Put yourself first and find joy in the sport.
I totally agree with that, and I'll leave you guys with this. And this is probably like one of the most contrary things you might hear from a coach, or you think you would have heard from a coach. I can truly, honestly tell that I have had a huge, hopeful, positive impact and a breakthrough with an athlete and their mindset when they ride in Training Peaks. I didn't work out today. I chose to do this instead, and I don't feel bad about it. That's what you should do. You should show yourself some grace, prioritize things that are important. Remember, this is a hobby, and it's supposed to enrich your life, and that at any time you feel like that you have shame or guilt around your training, then you're in a relationship you need to break up with, or you need to reevaluate. Because our hobby and our relationship with triathlon is just that. It is a relationship. And if any other relationship you had in your life, whether it was work, friend, spouse, whatever, family, and you felt like it was toxic and they made you feel ashamed or guilty or like you weren't good enough or that you felt negativity coming from it, you would tell yourself to walk away, or you would tell yourself that you need to reevaluate that relationship. And that's what you should do. And I think that we've talked about this so many times. That's one of the biggest, and the feedback that I get so much from athletes is like, I never knew how much benefit I would get from a coach, not just from an improvement standpoint, but from having someone in my training and triathlon life that can tell me you're okay, and this is fine to skip, and you should. And that's a huge part of coaching is help relieving and alleviating any shame or grief or negativity from an athlete for skipping something to go do something else or because they just weren't feeling it. Take care of yourself. Again, show yourself some grace. Be happy. Choose things in life that you're going to remember. Like somebody posted on Instagram or not Instagram, Facebook today. It was like, your kid's not going to remember that 30-minute TV show you watched, but he'll remember doing this with you outside or something. And I'm like, that's the same with training. I'm like, you're not going to remember that Tuesday threshold interval workout you skipped, but if you did it to go take your son to donuts in the morning for breakfast instead, you're going to remember that. So just keep perspective, keep your priorities in the right place, and reach out if that's something that you struggle with or need help navigating. You can always go to crushingiron.com. We have a ton of info on there on our club, additional podcasts, our blog, gear that we offer, triathlon and swim camps, swim analysis, and then we have we have a lot of options when it comes to training and coaching, and something that we've reevaluated as a team the last 2 months to offer a wider variety and wider range of possibilities for athletes with different training needs, different communication needs, and most importantly, different financial needs and constraints. So go to crushingiron.com, check out our coaches tab, read our bios, check out the options, and reach out if you need anything. You can contact Mike directly, crushingiron@gmail.com, and you can always reach out to me directly, c26coach@gmail.com.
That sounds good to me. So I guess that's it, huh? We're going to
wraps us up.
Tackle our days now?
Tackle our days, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Looking forward to our bi-weekly business meeting.
That's it. Bi-weekly / monthly every quarter business meeting. But yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you guys on Monday. And I'll be delivering a very passionate 39th birthday cast.
Ooh.
Yep, working on my birthday for the people. All
Is
for
your birthday
free.
Monday?
Yeah, Father's Day Sunday, and then a birthday on Monday. I've always kind of got the double.
Yeah, is that kind of the gift and a half kind of thing?
You know me, dude. I'm
you just don't want it.
I was like, what do you want? I'm like, I really don't like. We get in this argument every year about every holiday. Christmas, what do you want? I'm like, I don't really want. Like, I don't need anything. Robbie, it's not about what you need. It's about what you want.
Arrow helmet, and then I'll get your old one.
Right. I'm like, I just don't need it. My life is awesome. I got more than I could possibly deserve. But, yeah, I'm sure I know we're going to go out to eat Sunday, and I think, I don't know, whatever, something else on Monday. But you can't campus next week. But I had a very fatherly day reminder. As 2:30 this morning, I was showering off throw up all over my body. That's how my day was going. So that's hey, happy Father's Day, Robbie. Yeah, Hayden had some major stomach issues over the night, and I picked him up to take him to the potty, and he threw up all over me on the way. Like, love you too, kid. Love you too.
Yeah.
So we showered off, got back in bed, but yeah, that's father life, but I wouldn't change it for the world. But yeah, we'll come to you Monday. Have a great weekend, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Yep, happy Father's Day, everybody. All right, buddy. I'll catch you later.
See you, man.